Welcome back to the Deep End. I'm your host, and today we're stripping away the illusion that we're in control. We're talking about decision-making.
Right.
And I don't mean deciding between, a latte or a cappuccino. I mean the really hard stuff, the mathematical frameworks for making choices when the world is actively trying to mess up your plans.
It's great to be here. And you're spot on. We're not talking about one-off choices. We're diving into what are called sequential decision problems. Situations where what you do right now fundamentally changes the options available to you, 5 minutes from now.
It's the difference between identifying a picture of a cat, which is just static, and trying to merge onto a busy highway, which is dynamic and scary. The research we're covering today looks at how artificial agents, let's be honest, smart humans, how they navigate environments that are uncertain, partially hidden, or
even hostile, actively working against you.
Exactly. So let's ground this. The research starts us off in what they call the grid world. It's a simple 4x3 map. You've got a start point, a goal state that gives you a +1 reward, we'll call that the win,
Right.
and a pit nearby that gives you a -1, the loss.
Visually, it's incredibly simple. A child could look at it and just solve it, draw a line to the +1 square. But this is where we introduce the concept of the Markov Decision Process, or MDP. The twist is that the environment is stochastic.
Meaning there's noise in the system, your actions don't guarantee results.
Exactly right. In this specific model, if you choose to move up, you only actually go up 80% of the time. 10% of the time you might veer left, and 10% of the time you might get pushed by it. Right.
Which fundamentally breaks the idea of a plan, doesn't it?
Completely.
I mean, if I'm playing chess or navigating a normal maze, I can say up, right, and I know exactly where I'll end up here.
Yeah.
If I lock in that sequence, I could be in the pit by move 2.
And that's the critical distinction. In a deterministic world, you make a plan a fixed sequence of moves. In a stochastic world, a plan is suicide.
Yeah.
You need a policy.
A policy. So like a universal rule book.
That's a great way to put it. A policy, which we call pi, tells the agent what to do in every possible state it might find itself in. It doesn't just say go up. It says if you are in square, go up. But if you accidentally slip into square, your best move is now left. It prepares you for the slip before it happens.
Okay, so the agent has to be adaptable.
Okay.
Got it. But the part that really fascinated me was how the agent's personality changed based on the cost of living.
Yes.
The model includes a small penalty for every single step taken, right?
That's right. A reward penalty, let's say -0.04 for every move. You can think of it as the cost of time or fuel or just the friction of existing.
And depending on how high that cost is, the agent behaves in totally different ways.
It's pretty striking, isn't it? If we set that living reward to be positive, so the agent gets points just for wandering around,
It never tries to win.
and it actively avoids the goal. It just wants to keep the game going forever to rack up infinite points.
It's a procrastinator. Why finish the project if just being on the clock pays better than the completion bonus?
Precisely. But if you make the cost of living just slightly negative, it acts rationally. It takes the safest, longest route to the goal to minimize the risk of falling in that pit.
But then you get the unpleasant life scenario.
Yeah.
If the cost per step gets too high, the agent starts taking these crazy risks.
The math shows that if life is painful enough, somewhere between -0.4 and -0.08 per step, the agent will walk right along the edge of the pit. It chooses the shortest, most dangerous path because the lingering pain of the safe route adds up to more than the risk of just dying immediately.
Wow. So it's basically saying I would rather risk a 10% chance of total catastrophe than endure this long, slow drain on my resources.
Which feels uncomfortably human.
Yeah, it does. And if you make the cost of living truly unbearable, it's like worse than -1.6.
It just jumps into the pit on its first move.
Game over.
Instant termination. Because the -1 penalty of the pit is mathematically a better deal than the agony of taking even 2 steps somewhere else.
It's dark, but it proves that incentives drive behavior in ways we just don't always predict. Now, under the hood, all of this is being calculated by something called the Bellman equation.
Yes, that's the engine.
And I want to pause on this because we usually just gloss over the math. But the big idea of the Bellman equation seems to be about looking backward, not forward.
That's a perfect way to put it. The Bellman equation is really the math of delayed gratification. It looks at a square and says, the value of being here isn't just the reward I get right now. It's the immediate reward, PLUS, the discounted value of where I might end up next.
So it's like value ripples backward from the goal. The square right next to the goal is valuable because it leads to the goal. The square next to that one is valuable because it leads to the one that leads to the goal.
Exactly. It connects the present to the future. It propagates that future promise all the way back to the start state, telling the agent what to do at every step.
Okay, so we've mastered the slippery floor. We have a policy. But this whole model assumes this one massive luxury, that you actually know where you are standing.
And in the real world, your sensors are never perfect.
Which brings us to POMDPs, partially observable Markov Decision Processes.
Right.
And this feels like moving from a video game where you have a perfect mini-map to navigating a dark room with a blindfold on.
That's the scenario. The agent no longer knows for sure. I am in square 11-1. It has a noisy sensor. It might think, well, I see a wall to my left, so I'm probably in the corner.
But my sensor's kind of glitchy, so there's maybe a 15% chance I'm actually in the middle of the room.
Exactly. So the agent isn't in a physical state anymore. It's in what's called a belief state.
A belief state, so it's a probability distribution.
Correct. The agent is navigating this continuous high-dimensional space of probabilities. I am 90% here, 10% there. And this just makes the computational difficulty explode. It's what they call PS space hard, which is basically computer science for an absolute nightmare.
But this introduces a really cool new reason for moving around. In the first grid world, you only move to get closer to the goal. In a POMDP, sometimes you move just to figure out where the heck you are.
This is the key insight of partial observability. Actions suddenly have two values, reward and information. Sometimes the most optimal move you can make is to walk directly into a wall.
Which would look totally stupid to an outside observer. Why is that robot banging its head on the wall?
But to the robot, that bump confirms its location. It collapses the probability distribution. It's trading a little bit of time and energy for certainty. Once it knows for sure where it is, then it can execute the optimal path to the goal.
That makes so much sense. You can't optimize a path if you don't even know your starting point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've handled slippery floors and we've handled the fog of war. But in both those cases, the environment, nature, whatever, it was just neutral, it was random, but it wasn't out to get us.
Now we have to talk about game theory. Now there is another agent in the room, and they want to win just as much as you do.
The adversary. And of course, when people talk about this, the first thing they bring up is the prisoner's dilemma.
The classic. Alice and Bob get arrested, they're separated, they're interrogated. If they both stay silent, cooperate, they each get a light sentence, say 1 year. If they both betray each other, defect, they both get 5 years. But if one stays silent and the other betrays, the betrayer goes free and the silent one gets 10 years.
And the standard takeaway is that rational people will always betray the other person.
Right, because no matter what the other person does, you are personally better off betraying them.
That leads to the Nash equilibrium, the state where neither player can get a better outcome by changing their strategy alone. In this case, it's defect.
Right.
But here's the thing that always bugs me about that. The Nash equilibrium is arguably the stupid outcome. You both get 5 years. If you were both just a little bit irrational and trusted each other, you'd both be out in a year.
And that is the tragedy of the equilibrium. Individual rationality leads to collective ruin. The Nash equilibrium isn't the best outcome. It's just the stable one. It's the trap you fall into when you can't enforce cooperation.
Okay, so that's a cooperative setup gone wrong. But what about pure conflict? Zero-sum games. The research uses Two-Finger Mora as an example.
Basically odds and evens. The lesson there is about predictability. In a zero-sum game, if I know what you're going to do, I win. If you have a pure strategy, like always picking rock and rock, paper, scissors, I will exploit you until you are bankrupt.
So the truly rational move is to be random.
But not just any kind of random, you need a specific distribution. The math calculates what's called a mixed strategy. If you stick to the optimal mix, it doesn't matter how smart your opponent is, you guarantee a certain minimum payout.
You're building a mathematical fortress around yourself.
Exactly. This is the maximum strategy. You maximize your minimum possible gain. You aren't trying to outsmart them, you're just making yourself completely unexploitable.
Which works for simple games. But let's scale this way up. Let's talk about poker. Texas Hold'em. The state space there isn't a 4x3 grid. It's something like 10 to the 18th power.
It's astronomical. You cannot possibly solve it perfectly.
So how do AI agents beat the world's best pros? You can't be calculating every single outcome.
They use abstraction. They group similar hands into buckets. So to the AI, a pair of 9s and a pair of 10s might be treated as effectively the same situation. It reduces the game to a manageable size, solves that smaller game, and then maps the solution back to the real one.
But there's a tension here, right, between playing safe and playing to kill. The Nash equilibrium strategy. That's the fortress. If I play that in poker, I'm guaranteed not to lose money on average.
Right. You'll break even against a perfect opponent and win a little against a bad one, but you won't get rich.
To get rich, you have to leave the fortress. You have to do opponent modeling.
And this is where it gets dangerous. As the researcher Gautam Rao at the Count put it, once you add opponent modeling, it will kill everyone.
Because you're stepping away from the safe, unexploitable math, and you're making a guess. You're saying, I think this guy bluzz too much.
Yes. You deviate from optimal safety to exploit their specific weakness. But the moment you do that, you become exploitable. It's a high-stakes dance between safety and exploitation.
So far, we've been talking about how to play the game that's in front of us. But the final part of this research flips the whole table. It asks, why are we playing this game? Can't we just design a better one?
Mechanism design, or inverse game theory.
So in game theory, the rules are fixed, and we find the strategy. In mechanism design, we want a specific outcome, like everyone tells the truth. And we design the rules to force that outcome to happen.
And the most famous application of this is in auction theory.
Right, and when we think of auctions, we think highest bidder wins, pays what they bid.
That's the standard English option. But it has flaws, it can be slow, and it invites all the strategic gaming. People shade their bids, they bid less than they think an item is worth, hoping to get a deal.
Okay, so enter the Vickrey auction. The rules here are kind of wild. It's a sealed bid. I write down my price, you write down yours. Highest bidder wins. Simple.
But here's the magic. The winner pays the price of the second highest bid.
Okay, let's break this down because my immediate instinct is to try and game this.
Yeah.
Say I value a painting at $100. My gut tells me to bid $90 to save money. Why shouldn't I do that?
Okay, let's play that out. You value it at 100. You bid 90. I value it at 95, so I bid my true value, 95. Who wins?
You do.
And how much do you pay?
Nothing. I lost.
Exactly. But if you had just been honest and bid your true value of 100.
I would have won.
Yeah.
And since your bid was $95, I would have paid $95.
Correct. You'd have gotten the thing you wanted for $5 less than you were willing to pay. By lying and bidding low, you didn't save money, you just lost the auction.
Okay, let me try the other way. What if I bid way high, like 110, just to make sure I win?
That's dangerous. Suppose I bid 105. You win. But now what do you pay?
I pay your bid, 105, which is more than I think it's worth. I lose $5 in value.
Precisely. The mechanism completely decouples what you bid from what you pay. You can't lower your price by lowering your bid. You only lower your chance of winning. So the mathematically dominant strategy is to just write down exactly what you think it's worth.
That is brilliant. The rules literally force you to be honest.
And that's the power of mechanism design. You're not changing human nature. You're just aligning selfish incentives with the global good. We even see this with things like the VCG mechanism for pollution.
The tragedy of the commons.
Right.
I pollute because it's cheap for me, even though it ruins the air for everyone else.
The VCG mechanism just calculates how much total value is lost by everyone else because of your factory's existence.
So if my factory reduces the neighborhood's quality of life by $1 million,
Then you are charged a tax of exactly $1 million.
it forces me to internalize the pain I'm causing.
It makes the social cost a line item on your personal budget. Suddenly, acting selfishly is acting for the common good because you have to pay for any harm you cause.
This really brings us full circle. We started with this little agent slipping around on a grid, just trying to maximize points. We ended with designing global economic systems.
It's all the same problem, really. It's all about rationality.
But the definition of what's rational kept shifting.
It did. In the beginning, rationality was just calculating a path. Then, in the fog, rationality became about gathering information, bumping into walls on purpose.
Then, with game theory, rationality suddenly became about being random, being unpredictable just to survive.
And finally, with mechanism design, we see that the ultimate form of rationality isn't just playing the game well. It's constructing the game itself so that the winning move for every individual is also the best outcome for the group.
It leaves me wondering about the systems we all live in. You know, we complain about politics or traffic or corporate greed, but maybe we're just hating the players when we should be looking at the game board.
If the outcome is consistently bad, it's usually because the mechanism is flawed. The math here suggests that if we can just get the rules right, the behavior will fix itself.
A hopeful thought for a very complex world. We'll leave it there. Thanks for helping us navigate the makes today.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you for listening. Keep your sensors calibrated, watch out for the pits, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.